Hold on to your seats today, you guys. I have a life-changing guest, and I'm not kidding. Dr. Shefali is on the show today. She has been on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. She was recently on School of Greatness podcast with one of my favorites, Lewis Howes, and she has changed the way that I parent, if you can believe that. She is an incredible speaker, author, and psychologist who has changed the way that we adult children are learning how to reclaim ourselves, evolve, and the way we parent. She is the author of the book, The Conscious Parent, and hosting an incredible conference next month in Long Beach, California called Evolve. This conference, she talks about it in the podcast, so I won't mention it here, but she has a discount code for you listeners, $50 off with the code 50OFF, OFF. And she also has limited scholarships available. All you have to do is write in to her office@drshefali.com. And Shefali is spelled SHEFALI. If you go to that website, you can also click on Evolve 2017 to learn more about the conference and also to learn more about Dr. Shefali. I hope you guys enjoy this show. If you are thinking about having kids, have kids, or are a child of a parent, this episode is going to change a lot for you. I was incredibly grateful that she took an opportunity to speak with me, and I think you guys are going to love it. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Same 24 Hours podcast with Meredith Atwood. We all have the same 24 hours each day, and it's what we do with those hours that makes all the difference between our health, happiness, and success.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Same 24 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Atwood. I am thrilled and absolutely honored to have Dr. Shefali here with me today. Welcome.
Thank you, Meredith. I'm so excited to talk to your audience.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I have been a fangirl of yours since seeing you on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah. So I'm thrilled to talk to you. So you guys, Dr. Shefali is just incredible. She is like the parenting whisperer. She has a book called The Conscious Parent. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But to kick it off, I wanted to share this quote from her book with you guys. As far as children goes, the quote is, "We cannot expect them to become something that we are not willing to embody ourselves." So I love that. So let's talk about conscious parenting. What is a conscious parent?
Well, that quote really says a lot because in unconscious parenting, when we're not aware, we expect unconsciously our children to live out our fantasies. But like that quote says, we can't expect anything of the other, period. We certainly can't expect anything of the other that we ourselves don't radiate with or reflect, especially our children. Our children can only grow up in an atmosphere that stretches to the limits of our consciousness, right? So whatever limits we create from our consciousness, those are the limits that they will live with. So if we want expansiveness, limitlessness, courage, and risk-taking, then those are the conditions that first we need to set forth emanating from our consciousness. If those are not in our imagination, we can talk it, but they won't grow up in those conditions. They'll just hear the words, but never will see an embodied example. So a conscious parent understands that their own energy has so much to do with how their children grow up, and they work on themselves. They look at themselves as a work in progress to work on and to delve into and to heal so that they can provide an environment for their children that is wholesome and whole.
So you came into this realm of study because you realized that the adults that you were counseling needed to talk about their childhood. So you thought that there was a lot to this childhood thing. And so how did your practice come into being?
Well, every therapist understands that, right? It's the basis of psychology. But I understood that it was more than simply, excavating your past in terms of all the crap that was in there. It was also teaching them how to become conscious in the moment. And that has a lot to be taken from Eastern mindfulness. So I integrate my practice with Eastern mindfulness, which teaches you how to be in the moment and to be present and to be detached, so that you don't always react and you're always watching who it is you are in that moment and how that is impacting energetically and vibrationally the environment that you're trying to create, and doing the inner work that is part of Western psychology. So I really integrate both in my approach to help parents.
So when you say conscious parenting, how is that different from what we know as helicopter parenting? Because aren't the helicopter parents very aware of everything that's going on? But you're talking more about being a conscious person yourself before, not necessarily a parent, right? Like the consciousness starts with you as an individual.
Right. Yeah. Right. Being a conscious parent is understanding how fear is at the root of all your reactivity. Helicopter fear.
So we're all terrified parents, really.
Yeah, well, we're all just living in the future, imagining all these horrible things are going to happen to our children, and we really try to control it. So helicopter parenting is the epitome of this fear-based parenting, where these parents hover around their children all the time and micromanage their every move and their every talk, because it gives them some sort of control, gives them a sense of control. But little do they realize that they've mistaken caring for control, and they've mistaken fear for caring. So they don't care about the child, really. They care about their own inner state of fragility. They want to make sure the child is okay because they are feeling not okay. They want to control the child's life because they don't have much going on in their life. So they've taken on their children as these pet projects to really fill a void within themselves.
That is a lot. There's so much in what you just said. It's terrifying. But I remember one of the first times I heard you speak, you mentioned, you have this time until the child is 10 years old, and then you've lost them. So explain that a little bit.
Well, it's not so dire. You always have time to cover. But, the child's formative years are foundationally, they got to have, a foundational period. Typically, that's 0 to 10, right? I mean, then they kind of develop. Then they're kind of acting on what they already know. So I just encourage parents to take advantage of this, not to make it ominous or scary, but to take advantage of it and to seize the opportunity that children present in their early years, not just for the child to develop, but really for the parent to enter their deepest state of presence and consciousness, because children will teach the parent how to enter the present moment instead of the other way around.
So I want to go through a couple stages of parenting and see how how we become conscious and present in each stage. So what about you are pregnant and you are about to have this baby? What do you do? How do you become a conscious parent from day one?
Well, you watch yourself and you watch your ridiculous fantasies being created in your mind, when my child and I, and when my child this, and when my child grows up, and understand that these are all fantasies based in the future. So you're setting yourself up. Go ahead and set yourself up. And then when those things don't come to fruition, that's when you crash and burn and have postpartum and you're in shock. And how many parents get paralyzed because it's too traumatic? Not only is the process of birth physically taxing and exhausting, so are the crashing of all your expectations. You can't predict this, but you can watch yourself going out of control in your desire to have control right from the start. And this is the mania.
True. Oh my goodness, I never even thought about that. I never even thought about it. I do remember sitting with my firstborn when he was about 3 weeks old, and I had this thought in my head. I thought, if someone comes to the door and says, "Can we take your child?" I'll be like, "Yes, you can have him," because it was such a shock. You're so right. I had this thought that everything would be great. I was going to be this natural hypnobirthing mom, and you set up these expectations. Crazy.
Absolutely. So it all starts and goes downhill right from pre-birth. So the thing to do is check your expectations, manage them, recognize that they're coming from a state of lack and from a state of incompletion within yourself. And
When you say
You
a
know,
state of incompletion and lack, do you mean that's what's driving the fear is what's driving that, or vice versa?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think we even to the desire to have a child is coming from a desire to fulfill some expectation in your life, right? It's one of the things you check off.
So you have to
And
think about that long before. I mean, you should ask
long
yourself
before.
these questions before having children.
Yeah, you can't even like blame yourself at this point because it's been ingested. You've been so, polluted with this conditioning. You've been thinking about this since you were a 5-year-old girl because that's how culture sets you up. When you become a mother, when you have your own children, we do it to our own children without thinking. But what it does is, while it does propagate the species, and the shadow of it is that it sets you up to thinking that you got to have children.
Right.
And if you don't have children, then there's something missing and lacking in your lives. And I always tease with all the non-parents in my rooms whenever I have workshops that they are probably the most conscious parents because they haven't messed anybody up yet,
Right. I love how you talk about parenting as our ability to mess people up, because that just tickles me, and it's so true. We can really do a mess.
Yeah, we can do it really well.
So one of the things, and I don't know where I heard you say it, but you talk about being a conscious parent and realizing that a child you did not create this child, that the child was brought through you, or something. Talk about that. I love the way you say it.
So a lot of people say, you've created this child, and I always have to pause them and say, no, 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 we didn't create anything. And that receives pushback because, again, mythology and parenting paradigms and culture has extolled that the parent has created the child. So the parent thinks they're some mythical hero because they believe they've actually created the child. They know they did not, because no one can really.
Right.
It's the process of life itself. But we take ownership over that process, which is a delusion. And because we have this delusion, we extend it further into possession and control of our children. And then we want to hit the living daylights out of them because we can. And we don't need to examine ourselves because they're ours to do anything we want to. So then the ego roars louder and louder in the parent, and the child's true self fades away. Most of us are victims of our true self being decimated by unconscious parents. So that's what I'm trying to mitigate. I can't eternally and irrevocably erase it. Myself have already, messed up my kid, but I can help mitigate it through burning the light of consciousness.
That was so much there, so much. One of the things that was just incredible to me was trying to apply this, and I'm not there yet. My kids are 9 and 10. So when you said, 10 is when you need to get control, I was like, oh my gosh, my kids are 8 and 9. So they're almost 9 and almost 10. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have 3 more months, and then he's 10. I got to talk to Dr. Shefali now. This is going to happen quickly. But I don't even know where I was going with that. But, I can see moments, and especially in my son's life, where when you were saying, we're the parent, we're going to bend to our will, you're going to do what I say. I've noticed that when I just treat him with a little bit of respect, and it changes everything. And so where does the respect effect sort of come in? At what age do you start to, I guess, as a parent, if you've come from a family where you've had to bend to parental will, at what age can you kind of change that and start acting a little more consciously toward maybe the way you ask your children to do things, or, what are some examples?
Sure. I think that every age is an age to turn toward greater respect. What you're really doing with respect is that you're honoring the sovereignty of the other being, and you're not presuming that you have control over this being. You're truly becoming humble to your very small speck in there in influencing them, where before you had some delusional idea of your grandiose powers. Now you're becoming humble that, oh, okay, my child has their own life force. They're here to enact their own destiny. And I'm just, a small speck in this whole play. So let me take a back seat and get back into my humility and begin to respect this child who has their own life force that is quite admirable and undeniably looming large. So who am I in all of this?
Well, how do you reconcile sort of being respectful of your children, but also making sure they come out to be like good members of society and have manners and follow rules? Like how does that look? What does that look like in conscious parenting?
Well, it looks like the same. It just is not going ape crazy if the kid doesn't say thank you or please, but it's constantly reminding them, constantly checking on them, if they're out of line or bounds. But again, it's also recognizing that you can't make sure of anything. You can make sure that you're doing your part. You can't make sure that they'll turn out to be good citizens. You could make sure that you're reminding them to say please and thank you every single day, but they could still become homeless or drug peddlers. You can't control their future. All you can control is who you are in the moment. So I awaken parents to seize their own consciousness so that later on they don't say, oh, where was I? Why didn't I notice what was going on with my child? Why wasn't I present? Conscious parenting means that you awaken to your highest degree of presence. So you're as much as possible deeply connected to your child.
When my children were very young, 2 and 1, I was about 250 pounds and completely lost and just had no idea what would make me happy. And I started working out and started exercising. And then I found the sport of triathlon. And I realized how much that made me happy. And it gave me a purpose and a self-worth and all these great things. And as my daughter got older, and she saw me, riding my bike and running, one of my deepest fears and I guess childhood issues was my weight, right? And so it was always around food. And so I always had this fear that I was going to somehow project that onto my daughter. But the opposite, because I knew what I wanted with working out and training, the opposite has happened. She wants to be healthy and she wants to run and play. And so is that did I make a step in the right direction as far as conscious parenting with just taking care of myself in that regard?
Absolutely. You just seize the moment, healed yourself, embodied what you wanted to reflect, and then you left it up to her to take it on and be inspired or not.
Mm-hmm. So how much can we push our kids and not push them? Like if they don't want to play baseball, but they have potential, like what age do you just go, okay, it's up to you? Like how much are you allowed to
Right.
push?
Well, I think technically, you want to always be attuned to who your child is. It's not about potential for winning. It's about their own organic interest. So you always try to pay attention to interest. And then, of course, you push a little bit. You want to expose them and try make them see different things. But certainly by 9 or 10, if they're really pushing back, you let it go. So you enter it not with an idea that it's going to be a lifelong commitment. You enter it just to see, are they interested? So we enter it wrong, right? We pretend that we're entering it because we want to make sure that they're exposed to their interests. But we know we're entering it because we want to get a scholarship for college, right? So we do this double speak and then we pretend and then we're eternally disappointed and we feel resentful to our children as if they did anything.
Right.
Instead of just realizing these should be hobbies, they should stay as hobbies, and they do not define the identity of your child or you or their future.
So when you see those parents on the baseball field losing their mind, do you want to just take them to the side and say, we need to talk?
Yeah, I can't even go. It's just it's so delusional and sad and immature. It's just sad. It's just pathetic that we allow ourselves to take over what should be just innocent, playful hobbies of our children. You see, what's happened is we've professionalized everything. Nothing is just fun anymore. And childhood is supposed to be unbound fun, but we've made it a professional sport. The entire thing is a profession. Being a child right now is having a job, right? It's having an occupation. Child. What's your occupation? Child. Really, we've made it a job. And they can't just be. And this is the plague of our culture, that we don't know how to be ever. And we run away from being, so the ramifications are deep and complex. We don't want to pay attention to that because we keep thinking we're doing this in the best interest of our children. We're not doing this in the best interest of our children. We're doing it in the best interest of our egos because it makes us feel good. Or we're doing it to allay our fears because we're petrified that they'll turn out to be losers just like us.
Oh, Oh, that one stung.
Right? Or we want them to be successful like we are. How's that?
Right. That's true. It's projection.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it was you in the interview with Oprah where you talked about taking your daughter to ballet when she was 8. Was that your interview?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so tell everyone about that.
Well, just to speak of this whole mania about pushing your children and wanting them to be ahead of the curve, I had not exposed to my daughter to any formal things till the age of 6. Sure, we did a lot of creative stuff, but all homegrown and homespun and really cheap. And I've just refused to spend money on a child, where I didn't know for sure who it is she was yet, and I wanted her to explore. So, was savvy about not investing too much so I didn't have resentment or didn't tie her down before she was ready. But as it would be, we went for her first exposure to ballet at the age of 8. And by then, everyone's already, in some league and winning championships. So she was already tall for her age. And then they wanted to put her in with the 3 and 4-year-olds. And she was so upset and insulted. And it just hit me that, oh my goodness, I'm like 5 years behind the curve already. And she's not even 10. So how did this come to be? And as just a social commentator and eternally curious about the human psyche, I was fascinated to see this thing, how these kids were being roboticized and trained to run these marathons and pick professions at the age of 3 and 4. So she could not even enroll, really. She was behind everywhere, behind in tennis, behind in ballet. And then, of course, I did, a quick inner shaming, jaunt of, wow, what did I do? Did I mess up her opportunities? She could have been in the Olympics. Look what I've done. So, then you begin to beat yourself up. And all of it is just such garbage. But it's the game of the culture's conditioning, and you fall into it. You fall prey to it.
And how old is your daughter now?
14.
And she's okay without 2-year-old ballet, right?
Right. She's surviving. Just hanging on by a thread, but surviving.
Right. So for parents, let's get back to the kind of the stages. So for parents of say school-age children that are heading into elementary school, your kindergartner comes home from school. What does conscious parenting look like in the afternoons? Because I know what it feels like in the house sometimes. It feels like we're all going to die. Everything needs to be on a schedule. We're never going to get anything done. Wash your butt, get in bed, read a book. What does conscious parenting look like for the school-age child?
Well, all of us fall prey to being drill sergeants, do this, do that, do that. You play from 6:47 to 6:49, and then you brush it. Everything is scheduled and managed. Because toddlerhood especially and kindergartners are such out of control creatures that they really trigger us into chaos. We don't like it. We want everything clean and orderly, and we've grown up in order to have things under control, not for things to fall apart. So here your kid comes, totally a mess, every day a different thing,
And they're sticky. They're sticky, and they have stuff on their clothes.
They're so dirty, yes. So terribly inconvenient. Thank goodness they're just slightly cute. But even that's wearing off, It's they don't look as cute anymore. And so you begin to have serious doubts about why you had children, but you can't return them. So you are now stuck with them, and it's hell, right? So you're waiting for 7:30, 8 o'clock when they go to sleep. Like that becomes your mission. So from the moment they come home, it's just like the just getting to the finish line, which is get them to sleep.
Right.
And this is the problem. We forget to enjoy this most delicious part of life, of childhood, which is this the insatiable curiosity, this lack of caring about smelliness and dirt and just moving from one moment and one mood to the other. Yes, it's infuriating. Jekyll Hyde, Jekyll Hyde, Jekyll Hyde. That's true. But the beauty of it is that it teaches you impermanence, and it teaches you to be flexible, and teaches you not to hold on to your emotions for 50 days at a time. And so there's so much to learn from the toddler that we simply miss because we can't surrender to this madness called toddlerhood. But and the whole early, elementary years are kind of full of anxiety. These kids cry at the drop of a hat. Then they start giggling like crazy people. Then they're falling asleep on your couch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you're worried Now they won't sleep at night, so you wake them up, then they're drowsy and grouchy all day. Drowsy and grouchy all day. So, it's this endless spinning wheel that we put ourselves in the midst of, and we need to get off it. So once we get off it, then we can relax and enjoy this madness of early childhood and surrender to the fact that we have no control. There are no real rules, and the more rules you have, the more disappointed you're going to be. And just to enjoy this time, don't make it a big, rigid, codified system where you're all in the military and everybody's being punished, right? Mm-hmm. Don't overdo this age. This is an age of just being easy, teaching our children that life is fun and joyful and spontaneous. But we want to make little martial, artists out of them at the age of 8 and 7. And that's not their way of being. Their way of being is to be easy and relaxed and lazy and just being. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenge for us.
Well, how do you discipline a child?
Well, first you have to be consistent, and as consistent as you can be, knowing that every moment is different, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to have kind of a methodology. So I always say that instead of looking at how to discipline your child, you first discipline your own craziness. You discipline your own disorganization. You discipline your own overscheduling. You discipline your own reactivity. Don't discipline the child. Create the conditions for them to behave okay. And then have a huge bandwidth. And understand that this age has very low executive functioning. They are not capable of forward thinking. They're flighty and capricious. They cannot remember what they said. And this is just their nature. It's not because they're intentionally evil. And then figure out how to meet your child's connectivity needs. When you do that, the need to discipline fades away. Discipline, I believe, the way it's being done in terms of spanking and timeouts and taking away things, especially when kids are young, is a lazy way of raising your children because you can't tolerate teaching them.
Right.
You can't tolerate all the mistakes that they're going to make. So you just make it very us against them, very personal, and you just scare the hell out of them. You figured out that fear works well.
Yes.
So that's fear and shame keeps the kid in your grasp. Because if they didn't have fear or shame, they'll defy you. And who wants a defiant kid? And they'll tell you that you're wrong. And then we're really going to get pissed off. So we want to beat them down into obedience and subservience. And that's why we discipline. But there's no real room for discipline. Discipline, for the most part, is hierarchical, dominant, threatening, shaming.
And then you have teenagers. When you have instilled fear and shame, I mean, right? Then what happens? Oh my goodness.
Well, then one of two things. Either they continue to be subservient and disappear into the woodwork, only to rise later in some sort of addiction or sickness, or they rebel. They become the quote-unquote bad kid, screaming for help. So we have to understand that these behaviors are really reflective of a deeper need within the child that's not being met. And instead of reacting to them, we need to figure out what is the need. Is the need for more connection? Is the need for me to be clear about my boundaries and my limit setting? What do I need to do to respond to this child right now? I may have responded differently to another kid, but how do I respond to this child right now?
Mm-hmm. So your child is like, for example, if our listeners are listening and they're like, well, I'm screwed. My kid's 15. Mm-hmm. I have whipped and scolded and yelled and parented out of fear. How do you reach a teenager, or what do you do to turn things around?
Well, it's gentle. You can't just expect some big result and then start being nice and then expect your kid to just be nice and then, get upset with them when they're not taking the bait. Now you just have to ease up and build connection. Start building connection however and whenever you can without any expectations. Don't make it conditional. Just become unconditional and build that connection again so your kid feels safe to start talking to you. Listen, if by teenagehood you don't have a strong connection, the teenager is not going to start the connection right now. It's going to be very hard. So you may have to wait for the next cycle when they have their own kids, and then you can jump in again. It's hard. Listen, kids by the age of 15, 16 have been solidified in their way of being. And if they are cynical about your unconditional trust, then that's how it is.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for parents in this Snapchat internet age? I am terrified, Dr. Shefali. I am terrified of the teenage years with, we have a very limited electronics in our house, and I don't even know what to do. I guess I'm living in fear, and I'm probably not being very conscious.
What are you afraid about?
Well, I mean, you know what? I'm afraid of, that's a really good question. Deep down, what am I afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I'm afraid of what I should be afraid of, which is like internet predators and sexuality in these kids at such a young age, and danger, because I feel like I should be afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I'm actually afraid of it, because I'm very mired in social media. I think it's a great tool, and my daughter loves Musical.ly, and she does her, dance routines on there. So I don't know. Maybe I'm not afraid. Maybe I feel like I should be afraid, and because society is telling me to be afraid.
No, I think fear is never the right answer, but I think caution is, and being savvy is, and having good limits and healthy boundaries yourself around your own internet use, and putting in the sensors that will protect your children from stimulation that they're not ready for. I think we should do all that. I think we should be vigilant. I think we should take away the iPad after a certain amount of time. I think it is bad for their brains after some point. I think we should carefully monitor what they watch. Definitely, like you're giving them a weapon of mass destruction. Like you can't give them that. But you also don't have to live in fear of it, because then you're losing your own peace over it.
Well, I heard you say you need to monitor your own internet activity and social media. I was like, oh, okay.
Absolutely. And that's hard for parents to do, right?
It is. I think I love so much of what you do, Dr. Shefali, because it is putting so much responsibility on us as parents to really dig into who we are. And when our son was when he was about 3, we were having constant tantrums that lasted 30, 45 minutes. And, I just didn't know what to do. And so I went to a child psychologist in our area, and right out of the gate, she said, he is exhibiting symptoms of a mother who is depressed. And I was like, how dare you? But really, she hit the nail on the head. I was so unhappy with who I was. And that little boy just wanted my attention.
Wow. That's
and we turned it around in 3 months with her help. And he is the most loving, most sensitive child, but it was stemming from me. And I don't know why that was so surprising. I think because up until that point, I was living under the assumption that I created this kid. So I think
so you were going through such a transition, and you didn't give yourself a chance to heal, and then your child immediately absorbs that and begins to manifest the reaction.
Yeah, it's incredible. Such good work.
It's incredible how quickly they absorb things from you,
and how quickly they just turn around when you turn around. I mean, they walked up just a couple of days ago, and they came in the door from school, and they were both dragging their backpacks, like looking like it was the worst day ever. And I just really upped the tempo of my talk and my energy. And within 5 minutes, they were happy. It's so incredible. It's like almost an experiment. Like if we're happy, they're happy.
Yeah, they can move so quickly, and that's why we have to capitalize on their ability to evolve is much greater than ours. And, try to, so therefore the hope for us parents is that we can quickly, like you said, shift. And if we shift, they'll shift. So let's shift. So it doesn't matter what happened 10 minutes ago, or that you lost your temper an hour ago. Start in this moment, start at the beginning again, and enter this moment with renewed clarity and purpose and connection. And your children will fall into alignment.
Yeah. And also recognizing that they're just divine little beings with their own brains and light and life. I don't know, since I've started listening to you and how you in your work, just that small little tidbit has changed a lot for me. And I don't know why we forget that they're humans.
Because we're so conditioned to believe that we own them.
Yeah.
That they're possessions.
It's incredible. So you said we need to evolve. Let's talk about your conference you have coming up.
Yes, I'd love to. So it's my intention to create gathering places of concentrated, focused, conscious energy. And so I've created a summit that I do every year. It's next month in Long Beach, California. It's a stunning gathering of parents, educators, teachers, coaches, and children of parents, just adult children of parents who want to come to understand how to free themselves from their own past. And we have meditation. We have fabulous speakers, Reverend Michael Beckwith. We have Oscar-winning film producer Barnett Bain coming. We have How to Raise an Adult author Julie Lythcott-Himes coming. We have topics on anxiety, ADHD, oppositional defiancy, marital issues, couple work. So I try to touch on all aspects of daily living in these 3 days. It's in September, next month, Long Beach, California. And all information can be available on my website at drshefali.com. And I'll offer your listeners a $50 off coupon with the code 50OFF, 50OFF. So
Very cool.
that they take advantage and come and see us.
I bet that is a really emotional 3 days.
It is. By the end of it, it's pretty amazing at how many people go through deep transformations. It's like doing, insight, having me lecture 24/7. I'm there all 3 days. I'm pretty much the main lecturer along with these guest speakers. And we deconstruct and liberate all sorts of constraining belief systems.
Oh, I love it. So one more question for you. This podcast is called The Same 24 Hours, and it comes from the idea that we all have the same 24 hours in our day. And what we do with those 24 hours is what makes the difference between our health and happiness and success. So what is something that you do in your 24 hours that just makes such a major difference in your day-to-day life?
Well, I think that the two main consistent things I do is I exercise my body almost every single day and break a sweat and feel my body and enter my body and just rejuvenate physically. And then the other thing I do definitely every day, sometimes twice a day, is I meditate. So that rejuvenates me into a place of quiet and stillness and realigns me with my source and reminds me that I am beyond this form and I don't need to get caught up in all these things of ego. And just again reminds me that we are essentially limitless and expansive and boundless.
I love it. And you won't believe meditation is the most common answer to that question.
Yeah, it's great. It's picking up. Yeah, people are realizing that sitting in stillness is an essential.
It makes me have hives, but I'm working on it.
Well, it's just not the time for you. Don't worry about it.
My time will come, right? I have to grow
into
the adult child I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. I'll post the links up to the conference and your website. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, Meredith. Thanks to everyone listening.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Bluebird Hair Design in Atlanta, Georgia. I have to do this ad for my hair girl, and I joked about what do I call her because I can't call her my hair girl. But my master cosmetologist, Mel Ayers, I was in her chair today, and we were talking about questions for Dr. Shefali, and she had some really great questions. So I was like, I'm going to put you on my podcast. And she's like, no. And I was like, yes, no. But anyway, Bluebird Hair Design in Atlanta, her Instagram is Bluebird Hair Design. She does all the things with the amazing hair that all the cool kids are doing. And you get 10% off your first visit at Bluebird Hair Design when you mention the podcast. So check out Instagram at Bluebird Hair Design. Link is in the bio to how to book your appointment.